Welcome to Cheat Sheet Tales, where secrets slip, lies unravel, and the truth always has a twist. Real stories, raw confessions, shocking betrayals. Drop a comment if you've ever caught a red flag too late. Now, let's get into today's tale. After I brought store-bought cupcakes to my nephew's party, my sister-in-law said, "Figures. You never put an effort," guests smirked, while my mom just sighed in embarrassment. I started apologizing until my brother took a bite and said something that made everyone gasp. My name's Nina, I'm 38, divorced, no kids, and I've worked as a night shift nurse for nearly 11 years now. It's exhausting work, but I chose it, and I'm good at it. It's the kind of job that consumes you. You give everything during those 12-plus hour shifts, and when you finally crash into bed at 9 away, and you hope no one calls or knocks on your door for the next 8 hours, that rarely happens. Though I live alone in Scranton, Pennsylvania, I have a small house, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, and a dog named Rufus, who sheds on every surface I own. My life is, for the most part, quiet, predictable, steady. The one thing that hasn't been steady is my family. We've always had a weird dynamic. My parents divorced when I was 11. It wasn't messy in the way you'd think. No big fights or custody battles, but it left a lot unsaid, a lot unresolved, my mom. Margot is the type of woman who believes in image above all else, presentation, appearances, keeping face. She's always been more concerned with what the neighbors might think than with how her children actually feel. My younger brother Elias is 3 years younger than me. We were close once, inseparable really. When things got tense at home, we'd disappear into blanket forts and make up our own world just to escape. But when he met Vivian, that all changed. Vivian, my sister-in-law. She's a lot. I've spent years trying to come up with a kinder word, but I don't think one exists on the surface. She's the perfect wife and mom. She runs a parenting blog, sells essential oils, throws themed birthday parties with custom decorations, and always looks polished. Her nails are always done. Her hair styled. I don't think I've ever seen her wear sweatpants in public. My mom adores her. She calls her a doer, as if I'm not, as if, because I'm not baking cupcakes from scratch on a Wednesday afternoon, or hand-stitching party banners. I don't contribute. I work 60-hour weeks in a hospital, often skipping meals and sleep, but somehow that doesn't count as effort in their world. And now we get to the incident. My nephew Jude was turning 7, they were throwing a backyard party, and Vivian made it very clear that it was going to be Pinterest W-worthy. She sent out an itinerary. Yes, an actual itinerary with tasks and requests for the guests. I didn't sign up for anything because I wasn't sure I'd even make it. I was coming off 4 straight night shifts and running on fumes. But Jude loves me. He calls me Auntie Cammy, so I knew I'd show up, no matter how tired I was. I didn't have time to bake hell. I didn't even have time to shower properly that morning, but I wanted to bring something. So I swung by Wegmans on the way and picked up 2 dozen cupcakes from their bakery section funfetti with vanilla frosting and red and blue sprinkles. I even grabbed some little plastic toppers that said "Happy Birthday." When I arrived at the party, everything looked like something out of a magazine. Color-coordinated balloons, a bounce house, themed tablecloths, even a photo booth. Everyone was dressed like it was Easter brunch. And there I was, tired, still half in scrubs, hair in a ponytail, holding a plastic container of store-bought cupcakes. I smiled, walked to the dessert table, and placed the cupcakes down gently. That's when Vivian turned around. She didn't even try to hide her disdain. Her eyes scanned the container like it was roadkill. "Figures," she said with a tight little smile. You never put an effort. It wasn't loud, but it didn't have to be the way she said it. It sliced through the ambient chatter. A few people nearby heard and smirked. My mom, standing by the lemonade dispenser, gave me that look. You know, the one equal parts disappointment and resignation. Like I'd embarrassed her again. I felt my face go hot. Suddenly I was 13 again, getting scolded for not setting the table fast enough. I opened my mouth to explain how tired I was, how I still came, how I just wanted to be here for Jude. But before I could, Elias appeared next to us. He picked up a cupcake from the container, peeled back the wrapper, took a bite. Then he stopped, his eyes narrowed like he was remembering something. This tastes like Dad's birthday cake," he said. Everyone nearby turned to look. Vivian looked confused. My mom raised her eyebrows. "You remember that bakery in Green Ridge? That old corner shop?" he asked. "Nina, did you go there?" I blinked. "No," I said, still unsure what was happening. "I got them from Wegmans." Elias looked down at the half-eaten cupcake in his hand, then back at me. Well, he said loud enough for everyone to hear. Nina didn't bake them, but she still managed to bring something that actually meant something. The air shifted. There was this weird pause, like the entire party collectively held its breath. Vivian looked like she'd just sucked on a lemon. My mom didn't say a word. Then one of the other moms laughed nervously, and people started awkwardly turning away, pretending they hadn't. Just witnessed a family implosion. I stood there stunned. I didn't even know what Elias meant, that cake he mentioned. I barely remembered it. He leaned in as the noise returned and said, "I'll call you later. There's something you need to know." And then he walked away like nothing had happened. I didn't stay much longer at the party. After that, I helped Jude open his gifts, gave him a hug, and told him I'd take him for ice cream. Sometime soon he grinned and said, "With the dog too," and I promised I'd bring Rufus along. Then I left as soon as I got home. I took off my shoes, lay face down on the couch, and let everything I'd been holding in finally spill out. I don't cry easily, and I didn't sob or anything, but I just lay there for an hour, numb, not from the insult itself, but from how expected it had all felt. Like I had walked into a play where I already knew the lines. Even Elias's reaction, kind as it was, left me unsettled. Something about the way he said, "There's something you need to know," sat in my chest. Like a stone, he didn't call that night or the next. I didn't want to be the one to chase, but on Monday afternoon he texted, "Are you free tonight? Need to talk. Come by if you can." So after work, I changed into jeans and a hoodie, fed Rufus, and headed to their house. Vivian wasn't there when I arrived. Neither were the kids. The place was quiet. Elias was in the kitchen, hunched over a cup of coffee like he hadn't slept. He didn't say hi, just motioned for me to sit. Then he pulled something from a drawer and placed it on the table. An envelope, yellowed at the edges, sealed. My name is written on the front in our dad's handwriting. I stared at it. "What is this?" I asked, though part of me already knew it's from Dad. He said he left it for you in his will. Vivian found it. She didn't tell you. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. My fingers hovered over the envelope like it was a live wire. Elias kept talking. She handled most of the paperwork after he died. I wasn't in a place to deal with it. "You remember how I was?" I nodded. He'd spiraled hard. Drinking too much, not returning calls, he'd been drowning in grief, and none of us knew how to pull him out. I only found out about this last week. He said it was buried in one of the file boxes. She knew about it and didn't say anything. Why? Elias looked down. She didn't want to stir things up. I laughed, a short, bitter, little thing, so instead, she let me think he didn't leave anything for me. She thought it was better that way. He said quietly, said it would just complicate things. God, that woman. I should have been angry, and I was. But the anger felt old, like it had been waiting in me for years and was finally waking up. I opened the envelope. The letter was short. Just a few paragraphs, but every word was heavy. Dad wrote that he regretted not being there more for both of us, but especially for me. He said he'd seen how hard I worked, how I always showed up, even when no one noticed. He said he was proud of the life I'd built, even if it didn't look like what the family expected. And then this line, "You were always the steady one, Nina, the one who held the pieces, while everyone else looked the other way. I just want you to know I saw that. I saw you. I had to put the paper down." Elias sat across from me, silent. "I can't believe she kept this from me." I whispered, "She's not who you think she is." He said, "I didn't see it for a long time, but she's good at keeping control, especially people's stories." I asked him what he meant by that, and then he told me something else, something I wasn't expecting. "She's been twisting things for a while now, especially about you making it seem like you're cold, distant, that you don't care. She's told my kids that you're too busy for family." I felt physically ill, Jude hearing that from his own mom. I thought, that's just how you were now. Elias admitted, detached. I didn't realize she'd been feeding me that for years. I didn't respond. I just sat there staring at the letter, trying to piece together the years of silent distance between me and my own brother. It made sense now. The cold looks from my mom, the side eyes from relatives at Thanksgiving, the subtle shifting of chairs, so I was always just out of the main conversation. Circle Vivian hadn't just criticized me, she'd rewritten me, and I had let it happen because I thought deserved it. Maybe I wasn't doing enough. Maybe I really wasn't family material. And now I was realizing that wasn't true. Maybe I'd been cast in the role of the outsider. Not because I failed, but because someone made sure I stayed there. Elias put his hand over mine. I'm sorry, he said. I should have seen it. I should have stood up for you. I swallowed hard. I'm not looking for an apology. I said, I just want to know what's real now. He nodded. This is real, you and me, we'll fix it. I looked around the kitchen. Vivian is labeled Spice Rack, the chalkboard menu, the curated farmhouse decor, and I realized I didn't want to be part of her world anymore. But maybe I could rebuild something with Elias. Maybe I didn't sleep that night after I left Elias's house. I drove around Scranton aimlessly for over an hour. I passed the Green Ridge Bakery, the one Elias had mentioned at the party. It was closed, but just seeing it triggered something, a memory, faint and fleeting. Dad's laugh, a cold soda, crumbs, on the dashboard of his old Buick. He used to take us there on Sundays, didn't he? I'd long buried most of those early memories. They'd felt too tied to his absence, his leaving. But now, I realized he hadn't disappeared as cleanly as I'd convinced. Myself he had. There had been moments, glimpses of effort. Maybe not always enough, but real nonetheless. The letter burned in my purse like a secret. For a long time, I sat in the Dunkin' parking lot, gripping the steering wheel, going over everything Elias had told me. I thought about Vivian's words over the years, every jab masked as concern, every polite undermining. Nina's too busy for us. Don't expect much. She doesn't really do family things. She didn't respond to a veet, but that's typical. How many times had I heard some version of that? Shrugged it off and kept going. Now I was beginning to see the pattern. Vivian hadn't just judged me, she'd constructed an entire version of me. And worse, my family had bought into it without question. The next day, I called off work for the first time in months. I told the floor supervisor I was feeling off. She didn't push. It's an unspoken rule among nurses. If someone needs space, you give it, especially if they never ask. I spent the day cleaning my house, which admittedly was overdue. I scrubbed the kitchen, reorganized the linen closet, and pulled out an old photo album I hadn't touched since Dad's funeral. That's when I found the photo. Me, Elias, and Dad standing in front of that same bakery. Dad had his arm around both of us. Elias is missing a tooth. I'm holding a cupcake. I took a picture of it and sent it to Elias. Nina, you were right. I do remember now. He replied almost instantly. Elias, God, I forgot about that photo. That was the last time we all went together. I stared at the image on my screen for a long time. It was weird. I'd been angry for so long, at Dad, at Elias, at Mom, but now I realized my real anger, the heat of it, the betrayal. That was aimed directly at Vivian, and not just for what she'd done, but for what she'd taken. She had stolen my reputation inside my own family. That night, Elias texted again. Elias, Sunday dinner is still happening. Are you coming? I hesitated. For years, Sunday dinners had been a passive-aggressive nightmare. Vivian held court. Mom doted on her. The rest of us navigated her moods like landmines. I'd usually sit at the end of the table, drink a glass of wine, and leave early under the excuse of an early shift. But this time, I said yes. I had no plan, no speech. Just presence. I was done hiding in the shadows. Sunday rolled around, and I got there 10 minutes early. Vivian answered the door, and I swear to God she flinched when she saw me. Oh, she said, you're early. I just smiled and walked in. The table was already set. Of course it was. Seasonal runner, matching napkins, mason jars with floating candles, like a catalog. Vivian had clearly gone all out, trying to reset the narrative, but I wasn't playing along anymore. Mom was in the kitchen when I walked in, checking the roast. She looked over her shoulder, gave me a brief nod, and then turned back to the oven. No hug, no warmth. Elias arrived a few minutes later with the kids. Jude ran up to me and grabbed my hand. Are you sitting by me? He asked. I said, yes. Vivian glanced over, lips tight. Dinner began like it always did. Bland small talk, forced laughter, everyone politely ignoring the cracks in the foundation. But the tension buzzed just under the surface, like static before a storm. Midway through the meal, Mom brought up the letter. "So," she said, not looking at me directly, "Elias told me about the note your father left." My fork froze halfway to my mouth. I set it down. "He left it for me," I said calmly. "Yes," she said, sipping her wine. "Well, I suppose it was kind of him to say what he did." Vivian stared down at her plate. I waited, but no one said anything else. So I asked, "Why didn't anyone tell me?" My mother sat down her glass with a soft clink. Vivian handled most of the paperwork. It wasn't intentional. "That's not true," I said, looking directly at Vivian. "You saw it. You knew." Vivian flushed. "I didn't think it would be helpful," she said, her voice low. "Your father wasn't exactly consistent, and I thought bringing up the past would just remind me that he loved me," I asked. "Remind me that he noticed the years I spent trying to hold this family together while everyone acted like I didn't exist?" Everyone was silent. Jude looked between us, confused. "Why are you fighting?" he asked. "We're not fighting, sweetie," Vivian said too quickly. "Yes, we are," I said. "And it's about time." Vivian's mouth opened, but I cut her off. "You've been undermining me for years. You made sure my absence was seen as neglect, not exhaustion. You made it sound like I didn't care, when I've given up birthdays, holidays, sleep, so much of my life to be there for people who wouldn't do the same for me." I looked at my mom. "And you let her." Margot didn't respond, just stared down at her napkin. Elias spoke. "She's right," he said. "I believed what I was told. I didn't ask questions. That's on me. But we all need to own our part in this." The room was so quiet, I could hear the hum of the fridge. Vivian's eyes were glassy, not with guilt, with fury, like she couldn't believe someone was challenging her in her own home. "I'm not the villain here," she said. "I've done everything for this family." "You've done everything to control this family," I corrected. "There's a difference." She stood up, then grabbed a dish and walked it into the kitchen, as if that would make the conversation go away. But it didn't, because something had shifted, permanently. After that Sunday dinner, things didn't exactly explode, but they didn't return to normal either. Vivian tried to play it off for a few days. I could tell from her blog posts, thinly veiled quotes about setting boundaries and choosing joy that were clearly directed at me. I ignored them, but Elias didn't. He pulled back, way back. No more letting her speak for both of them. No more pretending. He started inviting me out for coffee, without her. Texting me directly when he needed something, instead of going through Vivian. That drove her nuts. I could tell. Control was her currency. And now, she was going bankrupt. The week after the dinner, I met with Elias again. We sat in a corner, booth at Zumo's, and went over everything. Dad's estate, the letter, and how Vivian had quietly made decisions about our family without consulting either of us. "I feel like I woke up," he said, and suddenly realized she's been editing the truth for years. I didn't respond. I just sipped my coffee and waited. Then he said, "I'm going to fix it." And he did. It started small. He brought the photo of us with Dad to my mom's house and put it on her fridge. When she asked about it, he said, "Nina found it. Dad took us that day. You remember?" Then he handed her a printed copy of the letter. "She deserved this," he told her. "You should have made sure she got it." Mom didn't say much, but she kept the photo on the fridge, and when I came by the next Sunday, she offered me coffee. Without the usual sigh or backhanded comment. From her, that was a peace offering. But the real shift came with Jude. That kid, he's sharp. He listens more than people realize. A few days after dinner, I picked him up from school while Elias was stuck in a meeting. On the drive home, he asked, "Why did Mommy say you don't like us?" My throat clenched. I could have ignored it. I could have said she didn't mean it, but instead, I told him the truth, gently. "I've always liked you, Jude. I've always loved you. Sometimes people get the wrong idea when adults are busy or tired, but I always want to be part of your life. He nodded. Quiet. Then he asked if Rufus could come to his school's pet day. I said, absolutely. When we got to their house, Vivian met us at the door. She looked me up and down like she wanted to say something biting, but didn't. Jude ran in ahead, yelling about pet day. Thanks for helping, she said, her voice tight. I smiled. Of course. Family helps family. She didn't smile back. Over the next few weeks, I kept showing up. Not out of spite, but because it was my life too. I took Jude to the park. I brought Mom soup when she had the flu. I started hosting small, casual dinners at my place. Nothing fancy, just me, Elias, the kids, sometimes my cousin Tasha. People started choosing those nights over Vivian's Pinterest-perfect Sunday dinners. She noticed. Her texts became more formal, then more distant. And finally, the big moment came, Vivian's birthday. Every year, she hosted an elaborate brunch at a local winery. She'd send out formal invitations, plan a ridiculous dress code, and post about it for weeks. This year, Elias said no. He told her he and the kids were spending the weekend at my house instead. Something low-key. Cam's making pasta. I hadn't even planned a big thing, but when Elias told me that, I went all out. Not with decor, not with spectacle, with substance. I made 3 types of homemade pasta, something Dad used to do with us when we were kids. I let Jude roll the dough and gave his little sister her own apron. Elias brought wine. We sat around my scratched-up dining table and laughed until the candles burned down. The next day, Vivian posted a single photo on her blog, a glass of champagne. Caption: some birthdays are quieter than others. The comments were empty. She knew people weren't listening anymore. Elias didn't leave her. I wouldn't wish for that, and it's not my business. But he stopped letting her control the narrative. And that was enough for me. The best revenge I ever got wasn't yelling or public shaming or even dragging her secrets into the open. It was reclaiming my story. It was sitting at my own table surrounded by the people who once believed lies about me. Now seeing me for who I really am, Vivian still hosts her polished events. Still posts about self-care and curated joy. But now, when I walk into the room, no one sees the lazy sister who brings store-bought cupcakes. They see Nina, nurse, aunt, daughter, sister. The one who always showed up, even when no one noticed. And now, finally, they do.